There are so many jobs out there. What do you know about them? We will ask some hardworking people. What do you do?
Hi kids, this is Eric with another job interview for you. Today we're interviewing Steve Walchak. He's a mechanic slash machinist at the Long Island Railroad. Hi Steve, how you doing?
Hey, how you doing? Hello everybody.
So in this series of videos we try to ask people about their careers and how they got involved with them and how they got into them. So the first thing I'm going to ask you is, what does a mechanic slash machinist do?
Well, let me give you the definition of mechanic exactly as it is word for word. It's very, very generic. It's very broad. A mechanic is a person who repairs and maintains machinery. Well, that can go a lot of different ways. Now, there's a lot of different machines. You have automobiles, being that this is for kids, I'll put it in kids' terms. Your mommy and daddy drive vehicles, so somebody's got to work on them. If you guys take a vacation to Disney World or overseas, there's airplanes, there's airplane mechanics. If you like to go on the boat, Eric knows a lot about this, there's boat mechanics as well. But also too, there's smaller things like people that come to your house that may clean your yard, or if mommy and dad are outside cleaning your lawnmower, your leaf blowers, there's mechanics that work on those engines. And then they work on some really big things like in buildings and shops that actually make parts, big machines. Those are also mechanics. Machinists, it's a very, they're kind of one and the same. And then also even stuff around your house. There's mechanics that work on your washing machine, your dryer, your stove, anything that's got mechanical parts in it, that's what we do. Now,
what do you do personally? Yeah.
I personally work for the Long Island Railroad. I am classified as a machinist. Now, the machinist craft in the Long Island Railroad goes back over 180 years. Back in the day, we actually used to make. Now, the term machinist, you actually machine and make your parts. That was a big thing with the old steam engines and the older engines many, many years ago. Now, we've kind of just became general mechanics. We fix the mechanical parts on the engines and the train cars, and that's pretty much it. We don't really make parts anymore. They sub them out and they bring the new parts in. But the machinist actually makes the parts, uses the tools, uses the machinery to make them. But pretty much we're classified as we're mechanics now. That's where it's gone to.
Machinery section of the Long Island Railroad. That's off that stop, right? It was called the stop on the Long Island Railroad. They would all say the Long Island Railroad employees off here. When you're going to the city.
Oh yeah. For you guys, yeah. If you're on the main line, that big white building. Anybody that's watching this will see there's a huge white building right before you get into Jamaica Station. That's all us. That's where it happens.
And that's where you work, right?
Well, right now, yeah, I used to be in Richmond Hill where I used to work on the diesel locomotives, but now I'm in Hillside facility, which works on all the electrics, so I'm doing stuff over there now. That was about 7-8 months ago. So
that's right. The conductor usually says, Long Island Railroad employees off at Hillside.
That's it. That's where I'm at right now. Yep.
You'll hear that when they go in.
Yeah.
So, how did you get involved in being a mechanic? Like, did you always want to be a mechanic, or did you just fall into it? Or?
I'm actually just really thinking about my own experiences.
Yeah.
I've always liked working on vehicles, engines, things like that. My best friend and I used to take apart old VCRs in the basement of his house and put them back together.
Yeah.
So exactly, machinery and mechanics say, but I like the internal workings of things, and especially with mechanics like vehicles and all that stuff. There's a lot of internal parts, and I always liked that. And also to my father. My father and I, he had me working on all the time his 1982 Oldsmobile Delta 88.
Yeah.
That thing was always breaking down. We loved that car to death. It was my grandfather's car. That's really kind of what got me started in it. And then as time progressed, I started doing work, car stereo systems, still doing the mechanical work, on the engines. Then I went to college for it, got into a job with a local auto repair facility chain in the area, and I was there for about 10 years.
You went to college for mechanic?
What's up?
You went to college to become a mechanic? Technical college or regular college?
Not per se. I went to SUNY Farmingdale for it, but I went for automotive management, which that was all right, but I didn't like managing too much. I'd rather just actually be there, working on the vehicles with the tools.
Well, I will say this: SUNY Farmingdale had I don't know if they still do now, but they had a lot of good stuff in the past. They had they were one of the only Long Island schools that had farm management, believe it or not. So they had a lot lot of trades and things.
They
like
started SUNY Farmingdale Agricultural School. Yeah,
that was one of the top mechanics.
They do have a mechanical program. They do have a mechanics program over there. When I went, a lot of older professors were there, and they knew the old cars, points and all that stuff. The new cars, that went out 30 years ago.
The new cars are like robots with all the.
Pretty much, you actually need for a lot of machinery out there now. You need a computer science to be able to work on them.
Yeah.
But it's a very good program now. That's why I know.
So you actually went to that's interesting. I like that. And so after college, you got into different places. You went looking for a job, obviously. Right?
Well, I was in college and actually working for my old company, STS Tire and Auto, which I'm sure a lot of you guys will see this. They're still around. There's a lot of them on the island. They're owned by Mavis Tire now, but they still keep the STS names. But I was actually working there and then going full-time to SUNY Farmingdale as well for about 2 years. And then I stayed at STS for a while, and then I jumped to Mavis, and then came back to STS, and then I started with the railroad about I can't believe I'm saying this, 8 years ago already.
And you love the job there? It's a pretty good job? I actually
it's good money, it's good work, I like it, keeps my brain going most days.
Do you have any funny stories related to your career, Steve?
Well, being that we're mechanics, and a lot of people probably watch this, children and adults together, that we're selecting pretty goofy bunch. So I got a lot of stories, but I will tell you one thing. One little thing that we had, and it was kind of a cute one. We actually had, I'll tell you two, but they're kind of within the same thing. We had a bad winter when I was at STS a number of years ago. And we had this is back in the early 2000s when I first started there, about 04, 05. We had an old Chevy Cavalier that came in. And this older woman, drove the thing maybe 10 or 12 miles a week, whatever. She got in the car one day and, pretty smart, pretty, alert woman. She's like, this thing will not move. I hit the gas and it barely moves. So I'm like, all right. Well, the Cavaliers had a very weird intake structure, a very long pipe that went to the top of, the engine. And we knew this problem already because we've seen this before. But I had never seen what I saw when I opened up the airbox. There was a nest in there, which happens. There was a nest. The two little mice that made it were still in there.
So that actually kept it. That's interesting.
How they survived this lady running this engine with air coming in and literally probably gluing them to the floor of that airbox. And then they took off. As soon as I opened it up, I scooped them up. I put them into the shop. And they took off. They were fine. But there's a lot of pressure going through there, and these little things
they were probably pinned against the wall. And then as soon as they found like that it was open, they were like, "We're out of here!"
It's like the old Gravitron at the carnivals, It's like,
well,
but the nest and the stuff that they made in there. Like the lady didn't drive; she was older. She didn't drive a lot, and they can make that nest within a couple hours. And the stuff that was there, you could not get any air going through that building.
Steve, do you have any advice for a kid who's interested in becoming a mechanic?
Okay, best advice I can give. It is a labor-intensive profession. You have to work with your hands, basically your whole body. You got to work. This isn't sitting in front of a computer or anything else like that. Sometimes it calls for that. But my best advice is get started early. If you have an interest in it, start small, work with your dad or your mom, something's got to be fixed around the house, if somebody calls somebody in to fix something, take a look at them. If your mom and dad are handy, be out there with them. My son does it. He's out there with me watching me work on the cars. Or even little things like this. I just had this thing sit next to me. These little sets, little mechanical sets you can put together.
Oh, that's cool.
Little things like that gives you the basic, knowledge of nuts, bolts, tools, stuff like that. It's very good. Once you get later in life, there's colleges that offer a lot of programs, and there's also trade schools too. Both of them to me are good. Don't ever look down on a trade school either. I'm going to tell you personally, know what I know now. I don't know if I ever would have done college because I think I would have gotten more out of a trade school. But that's me personally. You make that decision when you get older.
It's one of those jobs where you learn on the job, right?
Yeah, in college, you learn a lot in college, but they also give you a lot of fluff in there too. The trade schools, they give you, okay, you want to be an auto mechanic? All right, here you go, tear down this motor. You got about a week and a half to do it. So, you work in a group, you figure it out. It's trade schools are good too, and sometimes they get a bad rap, but there's going to be, especially with the current state of things, there's going to be a need for, society's changing very quickly. There's going to be a very, very strong need for anybody that's mechanical that works on cars, trains, boats, whatever you want to call it, airplanes, household appliances. There's going to be a very, very strong need for them because the older generations are retiring out right now. We actually just had this conversation at my job. They're retiring out and they're aging out and they're dying too because they're old. Not a lot of younger people want to get into it. It will be, I think, in about 10 or 12 years, it's going to be very, very lucrative for people to get into this profession because they need bodies, they need people.
And there's a lot of different ways you can go, right? Like you said, trains, wheels.
Exactly. Yeah, like I said before in the beginning of this interview, it's a very, very broad term. You could do a lot of things. You can work on cars, boats, trains, washing machines if you want. It's or even big machinery that builds parts for vehicles and boats and whatever. In factories, factory equipment. That's what I meant to say before. Factory equipment they work on too. You can do whatever you want. It's a very, very good field. I like it. But get on it early.
Yeah. Thank you, Steve, for doing this interview. And kids, if you have any questions, I'll have some links at the end of the video. And also, if you have any questions for Steve, you can just send them to me at reference@elwoodlibrary.org. And look forward to the future for having more of these What Do You Do career videos. So thank you, and thank you, Steve, again. And
you're welcome.
See you soon.
Pleasure.